Hello and welcome back to a brand new Godot video. In today's video, we're going to be going over how to create smooth player movement just like this. As you can see, the player goes and he halts to a stop and he kind of slides to a stop. So it's like a deceleration, acceleration type of movement. So it's not just an instant, it speeds up slowly, but it's not too slow because it's quick. And it looks very, very smooth. And we also have a jump, but not just one jump. You can double jump, but you cannot jump more than twice, right? And as soon as you hit the ground, you can jump twice again. So it resets. And this is how you make smooth platformer movement in Godot. But before we get started, please go down there, hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this video to help YouTube push this video to more inspiring game developers who want to learn to make their own Godot games as well. And without further ado, let's get started and make this smooth player movement in Godot 4. Okay, so what we have in our game already is a player with a sprite and a collision shape, and then we have a world with a static body, which is our ground, which is just a static body, or which is just a collision shape and a sprite 2D, and we instance our player into the scene, and that is it. So if we are to go and play the game, we don't have really anything to play because we can't play it because we have no script. So we're gonna go to our player and we're gonna create a brand new script on our player, and we'll just name this player.gd. So once we make a script, this is going to put a ton of just stuff in here, which technically, if we do go and play it, we have movement. We can't jump, but we do have movement, and this movement sucks. So we're gonna be completely redoing this movement because this movement is not good. It's very like stiff, and it has no acceleration, no friction, nothing that, you know, makes the movement look good. So we're gonna go and bam. We're just gonna remove everything completely, and we're gonna make some variables to start. So we're gonna have a constant variable, which is gonna be our speed, which we can equal to anything. We'll just say it's equal to 500. We don't really need a dot. 500, and then we can have another constant, and we can say jump power. This is gonna be how high we can jump. This is going to need to be a lot, right? So this is gonna need to be like with the new it used to not be a lot back in the old Godot, but in Godot 4, you're going to have to up this by like a ton. So I'm just going to start off with 2,000, and we can end up changing it later on, depending on how it looks. Because of the velocity. You used to have to make your own motion function, but now it's a velocity and it's already made. So constant acceleration equals 50. You can just do 50. And then we have, I don't know why this keeps auto-correcting. All right, and then we have our constant, which is going to be our friction, which we can equal to, like, you want to do it more than the acceleration. So make sure that is more than acceleration. And then we can also make one more, which is going to be our gravity. So I don't know if you saw, but we had gravity earlier, and it loaded in from a rigid body. I don't really like that gravity. I mean, a lot of people do use it because it works. It's like a rigid body and it will match everything else in the game, but I don't know if I like it because it's very hard to control. So I like to make my own number for the gravity, and then we can make a function, which is our physics process. For now, we can pass. We're going to come back to that because that's probably one of the most important functions, right? Because that's what loops over and over. And then we have our function, and we're going to make another function, or we're going to make this function, and we're going to name this input. And input is going to need to be a vector 2, right? When we output the information from this, it needs to make sure we're still in a vector 2. We can make a variable, and we'll just say input, direction equals vector 2 dot 0, and we need to get our input direction based on which way we click the buttons to go certain ways, right? So we're gonna have to go. This code does not return a value. Okay, it's gonna return a value here in just a second. So we got input direction dot x is going to be equal to input whatever we put. So we'll say input.getAccess, and then we're going to have UI left, and we're also going to have UI right, and then we'll do input direction dot So once we get this, it's going to either return with a -1 if we're going left, or it's going to return with a +1 if we're going right. So then we're going to want to normalize that, right? So we'll do direction dot equals input dot direction dot normalized, and then we'll just return our input direction, right? So then we'll return this. So when we call this function, we'll return with either a -1 or a +1. And then after that, we're going to make some new functions, right? So we're going to have to have an acceleration function, and we're going to have a deceleration function, which will be an add friction. So we'll just create those real quick. So we have function accelerate, and we need to have a variable in here because we'll call this direction. Because up here in the physics process, when we call acceleration, we're going to pass input direction. We're going to pass this number into this function. So stick with me. So we have this, right? And then we got, in our acceleration function, we got velocity. And then we'll do velocity is going to equal velocity dot move toward. And then our move toward, we're going to want our speed times our direction, which I hope you're seeing how this works. And then time with our acceleration, right? So you see that we have our speed, which is up here, so it's 550. So it's going to be 550 times either +1 or -1. So if it's +1, then we're going to go right. If it's -1, we're going to be going negative on the x-axis, so we're going to be going left, right? Because this is going to return a -1. So direction now is either a -1 or a +1, depending on what we're clicking here in the input function, right? And then if we go down, we can make another function. And on this one, it's going to be actually a lot easier. It's going to kind of be the same, but I'm typing add function, but it's add friction. And then in add friction is almost going to be the exact same as the velocity function. So it's going to be velocity equals velocity dot move toward. And then instead of speed, we're going to have a vector 2.0 because we want to go in whatever direction we're already moving in, and then our friction. So we'll apply our friction. And then we're going to need one more, which is just going to be our function player movement. So in this function, we're going to keep it very simple. It's only one line of code, and it's going to be our move and slide function from an already pre-built in Godot game. And then we can save this. So now we need to go up to our physics process, and now this is where everything is really going to come into scope. And I spelled friction wrong up here, so it's not spelled like that, it's spelled like that. And I still spelled it wrong. I spelled it wrong horrible up here. So it's friction, right? So after we have all this, it's all going to come together right here in the physics process function, and you're about to see this, right? So we're going to go up to our physics process now, and we're going to first of all have to get our input. So we need to come to this function here, and we need to get our input. So we'll do var, and then our input direction. This is a variable that's only in this script. This is going to have to be a vector 2 because we're going to have to keep this. We're going to have to keep this variable as a vector 2 because we're about to pass it through. Because in velocity, speed, direction, this cannot just be a number. This has to be a vector 2 number, right? So then we'll so basically a variable, it's going to be this is the name of the variable. It has to be a vector 2, and then we're going to call this function, right? So this function, so input direction is now going to be equal to this function. This function is going to be equal to whatever input direction equals down here when we return it. So it's either going to be -1 or +1, depending on what button we're clicking. And then after that, we can test it. So we'll say print input direction. And if we are to go and play, you will see down here, I'm holding right, it's 1. I'm holding left, it's -1. I'm holding none, it's 0. So right, left, none. Right, left, none. Right. So that's basically how that works right there. And then if we want our player to be able to move, we need to call our acceleration, we need to call our add friction, and we need to call our player movement, but not just in order, right? So we want to say if input direction is not equal to vector 2.0, which means we are moving one way. And then we want to, so if we're moving, we want to call our acceleration to get up to speed, input direction. See, this is where we're passing through this number. So now we're passing through this input direction because it's coming up here, it's becoming this input direction, and then we're passing it through down here to accelerate. Now it's direction. So direction right here, this is where we call it. So this is the -1 or +1, whatever it is, based on what we're clicking, right? So after that, then we call it acceleration. If you were to have an animation, this is where you would call your animation function, right? So you'd say play animation, right? And then down here somewhere you'd have a function that would be play animation, and you just have your entire animation script, right? So down here you would have your entire animation script, however you want your animations to work. So I spelled it wrong. Since we don't need it, we're not gonna have it. I'll just hashtag this out as a note. And then if this is not true, I mean if this is true and we are moving, or if this is true and it is equal to 0, which means we're not moving, then we want to call the add friction. And this is where, again, you would play your idle animation, right? So you would play an animation right here. And then we need to call our player movement function at the very bottom, just so we have the move and slide. You could just put move and slide here. This just makes it a little bit cleaner. And if we were to play the game, it works. You see we move, and we slow down, move, slow down, move, slow down, move. And you can kind of see it slide to a stop, right, when I switch directions. But that looks a lot better than the movement that we had before, because now we have acceleration and we have deceleration. So that's good. But we are floating in the air and we don't have any type of jump, and we're floating in the air. We need gravity, right? So to add gravity, we're gonna actually add our gravity inside of our jump function. So first of all, I want to go up here to the top. We need two more variables. We need a constant, which is going to be our max jumps, however many jumps that we have. We'll have like 2 jumps, right? So we can jump twice. So we can double jump basically. And we'll have var current jumps, whatever we're currently at. Current jumps equals 1. And then we can go down here and we can create a brand new function, and we'll name this function the jump function. And in here, we're gonna say if input dot is action just pressed UI up. So if we click the UI up button, we first want to check if our current jumps is less than our max jumps, because if we are the same and we're at 2, or we've already jumped twice, then we do not want to be able to jump again, right? So then we'll say velocity. So if our current jumps are less than our max jumps, which means we're able to jump because we have 2 more jumps still, or 1 more jump left, then we're gonna want to play our jump, which is going to be velocity.y equals jump power, which is the variable that we made at the beginning. And then we want to add a jump, so current jump plus equals 1. So now we are at I guess plus equal, it's the same thing, but we'll just do current 1 plus 1 to make it cleaner. So current jumps equals current jumps plus 1. So now we are at a extra jump. And then we'll go down here to else, and then we'll say velocity dot y plus equals gravity. This is where we add our gravity, right? And then obviously we don't only want to be able to jump twice in the entire game. Whenever we hit the ground, we want to reset our current jump, so then we have 2 more jumps. Every time we hit the ground, we have 2 jumps, right? So we'll say if is on floor. So if we are on the floor, then current jumps equals to 1. And now if we go and we play, we still have no gravity, and that is because we never even called the jump function. So we need to go to our physics process up here, and we need to call the jump function. And now if we play, we have gravity, we can jump, and we can move, we can jump twice. We can't jump 3 times though, but as soon as we hit the ground, we have 2 more jumps, right? So we can jump twice, we can move smoothly, we hold to a stop, we speed up, and it looks very, very nice. So this is basic player movement for a platformer in Godot 4, and I hope this video did help you out. If it did, please go down below, hit that subscribe button, drop a like to help YouTube push this series to more inspiring game developers so they can learn to make their own Godot games as well. But if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and I will be sure to respond to you very, very quickly. Until next time, stay safe and have a wonderful day.